Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to Wasteland Talks, my weekly talk show where I talk about whatever the hell I want. And we're doing another mix and match, and my buddy Vinny is back. So, Vinny has a movie, I have a director, and we're gonna mix and mash them and see what we got. And because this one is coming out in the throes of spoopy season, because it's September, we're recording this on September 1st, which means for the vast majority of people, it's Halloween time already. So we're gonna see what we're gonna have here. But Vinny, what movie did you pick?
All right, so as Shane said, it's officially spooky season, so I want to do a horror movie and I chose Rosemary's Baby. It's not only one of my favorite horror novels, it's one of my favorite horror movies.
It is a great film and very unnerving. And this is going to be an interesting combination because we're going to make it Japanese because I picked Akira Kurosawa. Now, Vinny informed me he doesn't have a ton of experience with Kurosawa's films, but this will be interesting to see in terms of I'm imagining this now taking place in like feudal Japan. And obviously that would give it a very different kind of vibe because I think Rosemary's Baby is so very much like urban. Like I think it's a very interesting point that this takes place in a city with urbanites, actor,
It
and
definitely it definitely plays a big part in it.
so it's interesting how this would be different in terms of I feel like it would be less weird from like a communal standpoint of like this older couple wanting to help out this younger couple in the relationship because like I think one of the big things in Rosemary's Baby is I feel like your experience with like other people being involved in your life really goes like how far this one couple wants to really be like so involved in Rosemary's experience and stuff like that. But I feel like in Japanese culture, it's potentially more of a communal thing. So maybe it's a little bit more shocking when it turns out that, oh, these people have nefarious purposes. But in terms of, I guess one thing that immediately popped in my head when you told me we were going to do Rosemary's Baby is the devil sequence. Because like obviously that's one of the most memorable, like visually evocative scenes in Rosemary's Baby. And I'm imagining it being like, because I know you said you saw Throne of Blood, right?
Mhm.
So imagining like that eerie, foggy kind of
Yep.
aesthetic. And I'm imagining the devil wearing like a kabuki mask and having like that kind of design and making it extra creepy.
Well, I guess I'm trying I'm trying to think I guess we should talk about who we would cast because like I said before the recording, you're gonna have to do a lot of the heavy lifting with this. I mean I can supply the characters, but you're probably gonna have to do most of the casting.
Well, I feel like a lot of this casting is gonna, well, because like one big thing is I don't think a lot of the actors, there's like two recurring actors in Akira Kurosawa's filmography, and one it's Toshiro Mifune, who is like he's the Macbeth character in Throne of Blood. He's the businessman in High and Low. He's the samurai. He's the bandit in Rashomon, and he's basically like the lead samurai in most of the films that Kurosawa made. I think he would make an interesting husband. So like the Cassavetes character, I think because there's an intensity about him, and I feel like there could be like a darkness underneath kind of thing that would be interesting. And Takashi Shimura, he's an Ikaru. He's the aging bureaucrat who winds up trying to make this park. He's also the more seasoned samurai leader in Seven Samurai. I feel like he would probably be the was it the what's the name of the older couple in Rosemary's Baby? The
The
Cassavet.
yeah, Roman and Minnie Castevet.
Yep. So I would imagine him being Roman for sure. I think that would be interesting. And I'm thinking, I don't know this actress very well, but I know one of like the main standout female performers in Kurosawa's films was Isuzu Yamada, who plays the Lady Macbeth character in Throne of Blood. So I think that might be an interesting bit of casting to play um Mia Farrow's character as Rosemary, the lead of the film. But I feel like I guess the casting wouldn't be as like the fan casting wouldn't be as fun because it's like I feel like there'd be a lot of just like Japanese character actors thrown into the film. Um,
I could maybe see the guy who played and again like High to Low is one of the only Kurosawa movies I've seen, and I just watched it, so this could very much be recency bias,
mhm,
but I could probably see like the actor who played the main character's chauffeur.
yep.
I could possibly see him as Hutch.
Yutaka Sada,
Yeah.
who plays that big important supporting role in High and Low. That's an interesting choice for sure. I think this would be such an interesting decision because we have so many films that are Japanese that wind up being adapted into American films. It would be very interesting to see a film like this that feels very like American urban kind of film being translated into a different culture. And you know, you have just a very different aesthetic, but I feel like very traditional kinds of roles might play an interesting part because I feel like Mifune's husband character would be much more forceful because at the end of the day, like Cassavetes' character is kind of he's like a coward. Like even at the very end, he's kind of like shamefully cowering off to the side when they get into the whole entire Hail Satan baby party at the end of the film. And I feel like there would be some interesting imagery that you could certainly play around with like because obviously like one of the eerie things about that at the very end of Rosemary's Baby is that this is just like some kind of like dinner party, like just some regular dinner party you would
Mhm.
expect from a bunch of New Yorkers to be putting on. I feel like in like a feudal Japan kind of Kurosawa version of this. Maybe it's like more of some kind of ritualistic thing that she wanders into. And maybe it's a little bit more intense. And I'm guessing also, obviously, there'd be some big changes culturally because it wouldn't necessarily be like the devil that we perceive
Mhm.
as, he's speaking as a Roman Catholic. It's very clear. It's like that's the devil that's in Rosemary's Baby. I would imagine like dealing with other kinds of like deities in a different kind of way if this was a Japanese film for sure.
Right, and then I'm trying to think of another other character. Oh, there's TerryGinofrio, the woman that Rosemary meets in the laundry room. I mean,
Mhm.
I know she's only in it for like two scenes, but she plays a pretty significant part.
Yeah,
I don't
and
know.
oh, go ahead, Vinny.
No, I was gonna say again recency bias here, but I'm thinking maybe I'm thinking maybe the actress who played the main character's wife in High and Low. I think she could because like she definitely she definitely had like that friendly that friendly type of persona that Terry
Mhm.
D'Onofrio has. I could probably see her doing that.
And she has and obviously this is more of like she's meant to be like this innocent kind of woman, and what happens to this character is very important for you to feel some kind of empathy. um Kyoko Tagawa looks like it, who played uh the wife in High and Low, would be that character for sure. um but I think that probably like the biggest thing is definitely seeing how this would be adapted differently in a different culture. And I think it would have a very different kind of vibe, because obviously if this was like adapted by another like heavily Christian kind of culture, you would still get like the devil imagery and stuff like that. But I think it would be an interesting thing to translate it into a different religion, a different culture for sure. Um, in terms of how Kurosawa would go about this differently. Because I don't think a lot of his films really deal in faith. Like that doesn't seem to be a big part of it. I feel like something like Throne of Blood's probably like the closest of dealing with like deities and ghosts and like darker kinds of elements like that. But for one, this is going to be incredibly directed, because Kurosawa is such a dynamic and interesting director.
Mhm.
And I I would be particularly intrigued to see like what kind of like those darker, more abstract moments. Because like going back to that, like the unfortunate like devil rape scene of Rosemary, and that whole entire ritual that she thinks she's having a nightmare, and it's like she's not really having a nightmare. Seeing what those kinds of visuals might be. But I would imagine like I'm trying to think if there's anything that would have to be like drastically changed, I guess. I feel like story in general and like the main beats would be similar. It's just, just a cultural shift in perspective. And, you know, you're not sharing a high rise in like an apartment and
Mhm.
stuff like that. It's more, I would imagine being like they arrive in like a new village or something like that. And there's something darker, seedier underneath the surface with their neighbors and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I don't have like, I don't have a lot of knowledge of like of like Japanese of like Japanese religions and everything. So I'm not really sure like what their like equivalent of Satan would be.
I feel like, especially because it's not in terms of doing a little bit of research. So, like, main, why is my phone? Main religion in feudal Japan. So, thinking about it's Shinto and Buddhism are like
Okay.
the biggest religions at the time. And thinking about Shintoism, focusing on the kami, different spirits and gods in the culture. Um, Shinto, because like I have like very basic kinds of ideas based off of like watching Japanese films and
Mhm.
anime and stuff like that. So Shinto has no direct equivalent to like a single evil god, but rather includes spirits of chaos and destruction. So that would be interesting. Kind of taking it that, and that would be interesting too, because I feel like it would give the film more of a moral ambiguity. Because like, let's be real here. If somebody's going to be carrying the child of Satan, that's pretty clear like that's supposed to be evil. But I guess in terms of like, what if it's a god of chaos or something like that? And it's like maybe balancing, like, it's a harder kind of being like, is this an honor carrying this child? Or like, what could possibly happen of my child? Not that. like there's I'm not saying anything against the idea of like because Rosemary's Baby, a lot of the like the tension of the film is like what are the intentions of this couple and like did this really happen and stuff like that. And by the time you realize like yeah she's carrying this entity's baby, it's like that's a bad thing. I feel like this could open up some space in terms of like maybe she finds out and starts questioning like he has a struggle internally about like is this a good thing, is this an honorable thing, or like what could my child wind up bringing upon this earth and stuff like that. I don't know, it seems like it could be potentially interesting in adding some different kind of dynamics to it.
Yeah, and I don't know what else. I'm just because I don't know. I feel like some of the stuff that 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 Minnie and Roman do would be fun to like parts of like their scheme would be
Mhm.
interesting to like translate into a Japanese horror movie. God, I'm just again like I just wish I wish I had more of a knowledge of Japanese culture that I could like really I could really go in depth with this.
I would
Um,
imagine what would be fun is seeing her being just like a sassy little Japanese granny. Being a little like being a little too pushy with trying to help and stuff like that. I feel like that would add an interesting dynamic to the film for sure. I don't know exactly who I'd cast necessarily. But I think that would be like a fun little dynamic because that's one of the most interesting things is because trying to balance is like, is that relationship in Rosemary's Baby like from the start? It's like she just seems like a caring neighbor. Maybe she's a little too pushy, but you know, they're New Yorkers, right?
mhm.
Um, like in the cities, like some of them could be a little bit like, I'm gonna help you. Like being Italian American, I know Vinny, you can understand. Sometimes like moms and grandmoms be a little pushy
Oh
to
yeah,
help out with things
absolutely.
and that kind of dynamic. And I feel like it is very similar in a lot of very traditional cultures where it's like elders is like, you're gonna listen to me, you're gonna like it. And I feel like that can be a fun and interesting dynamic. And what I appreciate too is Kurosawa can inject some humor into his films unexpectedly, and I feel like there can still be some of that space because Polanski does for sure. There's like some little humorous elements to Rosemary's Baby, you know, along with the fact that it's absolutely terrifying, and very messed up for sure.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like one thing that I would miss in translation is the very end with the whole like "Hail Satan" is just so unexpected and creepy and hilarious all at the same time at this party. And I don't know if like them doing chants to like it looks like there's two specific gods that it could potentially be like Amatsumika Boshi is the primordial god of chaos and darkness. So that sounds pretty fitting for this situation. Or Magat Suhi no Kami is the god of disaster and misfortune. And that seems like that could be interesting where it's more of like an elemental thing. It's just like maybe this child bringing that kind of energy into the world. It's like bringing about natural calamities and stuff like that. It's like not trying to do that, like just being a part of that. But you know, a god of chaos and darkness sounds pretty legit too. But like at the very end, like them chanting to one of those gods, I don't know if it would have the same like obviously it would have more of a cultural impact for Japanese people, but like I don't know about you, Vinny, but having a whole entire dinner party of people just being like "Hail Satan," certainly was an unexpected result at the end of the movie. Watching that, and I think because Rosemary's Baby, I don't think a lot of people would think about it this way. It is a kind of like a folk horror film. Like they're basically a cult,
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So I think it would be interesting having this like cult to one of these Shinto gods being behind all of this. So I don't know. I think it could be an interesting film. I'd trust Kurosawa to make something interesting out of it. And obviously he would have really good material to work with because it's a I know you mentioned this is one of your favorite horror novels on top of being uh one of your favorite horror films. I think it's just a great story to be able to play around with. And the element of a mother doing anything to like make sure she's taking care of her child,
Mhm.
I think is very universal and make this something interesting and something that any audiences can dig into for sure.
But now, like you said, this would probably take place in what feudal Japan.
It could. I know a lot of Kurosawa's films take place in feudal Japan. Like obviously it could be something like High and Low where it's just like modern day Tokyo or something like that. Which that
Yeah,
could also be that would be a much more like closer adaptation to Rosemary's Baby for sure.
yeah, obviously not a if we do it in the time period of like similar to high and low, obviously not like the type of high rises we see in Manhattan, but like, something similar to what they have in Japan because it definitely has to be like an apartment complex because that's like part of the terror of Rosemary's Baby. Like even though they have their own apartment, they're living in the same building as these people,
Mhm.
and eventually you find out Roman and not Ro you, Rosemary and Guy's apartment has a secret passageway to Minnie and Roman's apartment. So just like the whole layout of the apartment factors heavily into the story. And like Roman Polanski, he did like a whole I think he did like a trilogy that was called the Apartment Trilogy. Like all
Mhm.
three movies take place in an apartment. It was Rosemary's Baby, Repulsion, and the Tenant.
It was fun, interesting. I was thinking about Repulsion because I've seen that one. And now that's like really uncomfortable um being caught in that situation. But I feel like if you were gonna do in feudal Japan, it would have to be some kind of isolated village
Mhm.
because you have to have the feeling that there's no real escape from this and that it has to be close knit enough for there to feel like you're
It ha
trapped with these people.
it has to have that fake sense of that fake sense of community
Absolutely. And even if it's something like they find a trap door and like a tunnel
that leads
from
to one of the other houses.
mhm, damn, that would be messed up. Well, Rosemary's Baby's messed up from start to finish,
Yes.
so it's a pretty messed up movie. This isn't just there's a lot of messed up shit, obviously. But I think either way, obviously, I think it would be a lot easier, even if it is in contemporary Tokyo, which that would be very interesting because everything's built up
Mhm.
in modern Japan, in big cities and stuff like that. So I think that it would be very interesting. Um, like if magically Kurosawa was still alive, or even if it was like made in the early 90s, towards the end of his career, where it's like Tokyo was still probably built up at that point and having skyscrapers and big apartment buildings, being able to lean in that direction. I will, you know what? I'd watch either version, whether it's us going with like this feudal Japan kind of idea, which I feel like could draw upon a lot of other horror films that are dealing with like that isolation out in like a small community. I feel like you would have to lean a lot more into the folk horror elements
Mhm.
of it if you're going to go in that direction versus, if you did make it in modern Japan, it could even be about like you could add that layer of these are Christians and it is the devil. And it could add that even, I guess, even more twisted layer of like you were bringing Christianity into Japan. And then even more intense, like, what if the Cassavetes were like missionaries? Like they cut descendants from missionaries and like they are white people living in Japan. and the main character is a Japanese woman, and that violation of like forcing this Christianity, forcing this baby into this woman would be really messed up. And that could be some interesting layers about like missionary work and religious imperialism and stuff like that you
Mhm.
can dig into.
It- that's interesting.
See, I feel like we're cooking now. I want to I want to see some of I would actually really want to see that movie. That would be a really interesting one. If that were the case, if this was like early 90s and this was like a white couple in Japan, like I'm imagining like you could even have like Hiroki Sanada as like the husband character because he was a young actor in the 90s. I know he was in Ringu, the original Ring. Um, who would you cast if this was early 90s and you needed like a later middle-aged white couple to play this couple who's living in Japan doing all these horrible things, bringing about Satan? Who would you cast?
Middle-aged?
So I guess at least 40s, 50, because well, actually, how old
Uh,
do you think the Cassavets are? Like 60s, 70s?
I would say probably
Closer to
70s.
70s. So thinking about that, who would you cast in that kind of role?
Ah, I'm trying to think of like some good like horror actors of that age from that.
Oh, that's a fun idea if you cast somebody who was like big in the 70s or 80s and now like getting into the 90s, maybe they're getting a little bit older. Oh, wait a minute. Like
Ah,
when did Donald Pleasance die?
I
At
I
least in
was
the Oh, go ahead.
I was thinking of him, but I I I don't know. I mean, like with well, because I mean,
Now he would be much
like
older.
well, Donald Pleasant, he seems like because like I remember Roman being pretty tall in Rosemary's Baby. Like Donald Pleasance doesn't really have like that much of an imposing figure from what I
And
remember in Halloween.
what if they cast Vincent Price? Like obviously he would be like 80, more like elderly, but wouldn't that be an interesting choice? Because like
Oh,
he was in his last couple movies in the early 90s. I know he was in Edward Scissorhands and stuff like that. And he also has that kind of like he definitely feels like some dude who would run a cult.
so we have Vincent Price, and then I could. So if we're talking 90s, you know what? I think once we get to the 90s in terms of somebody in terms of like the appropriate age for the character, I think Helen Burstyn might be in that sweet spot.
That's a great choice. That would be very interesting. Who I thought in my head before you said her was maybe Janet Leigh.
Oh, you know what? You know what? That's another one.
That would be really interesting if you had her and like Vincent Price as this older couple living in Japan trying to get really involved in this young Japanese woman's life and stuff like that. Oh, that would be very interesting because she's not the tallest person and I don't think she's quite as small as the actor like was it Ruth Gordon?
Yes.
Yeah. But I think that would be something interesting. That would be an
Uh,
interesting casting.
Or you know what? I know that this might come off as stunt casting, but like what if you like brought back Mia
Mia
Farrow
Farrow.
but to play Minnie Castevet because like although I didn't care for the remake of The Omen, I thought she was pretty good as Mrs. Baylock as Damien's nanny.
Interesting. So How interesting would it be if we really went with this and just theoretically Cassavetes didn't die in 1989 and it was the
And
two of them?
yeah, yeah, that actually would be pretty good because it would be like a full circle type of moment for them.
That would be very interesting. See, this is the negative thing of doing shows like this. I'm like, I actually want to see this movie now. It's never gonna happen. Because everybody involved in this are dead. Um, and obviously Kurosawa passed away. Probably like 20 years ago at this point. But no, that would be really interesting. I like either the callback of bringing back Mia Farrow and John Cassavetes or going a little bit older with that Janet Leigh Vincent Price combo, I think would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, yeah, I think like as long as you get like either Mia Farrow or Jonathan Cassav is it Jonathan Cassavetes?
I think it's just John.
Okay. Or John, whether you get those two back or you get like two like other like well-known people in the horror genre, like it could
Mm.
definitely work. It could definitely work.
It'd be a lot of fun because I'm trying to think. I don't know if he'd be old enough. But like how wild would it be if it was like Robert Englund just pops up as like this leader of this demonic cult in Japan? Just have Freddy Krueger pop up. I don't know if age-wise it would work
Or
necessarily because like
actually, Robert Englund, I think he would be pretty creepy as Dr. Saperstein if they were to,
mm,
or I mean if we're not if this was like the 90s version like Dr.
yeah,
Saperstein like he'd probably be dead by then but like the stand-in for Dr. Saperstein.
that'd be interesting. That would be creepy. Creepy for sure. Because I'm trying to think of like because like all the big horror leads that I can think of, like honestly, a lot of them are women, and a lot of them are like younger women. Like like I'm thinking about Carpenter, like it's Kurt Russell most of the time. That would be something. Um, going in a very different kind of direction. I'm just imagining now, like, what if this was made now and it's Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn are this couple?
Ooh.
Kurt Russell has so much swagger and charisma. He 100% could be a cult leader.
Hmm.
Like, easy. Like, I could see that easy kind of thing. But no, I think those are a lot of interesting ideas. I think the idea of bringing Farrow and Cassavetes
Hmm.
in a 90s version of this in those opposite roles would be such a great idea. And I'm trying to think who I think Hiroki Sanada would be interesting, or even if you went full blown, who played in it's I'm trying to think who's the actress who plays in The Ring as the main character. That would be interesting. But, you know, I think we came up with some interesting ideas for sure, Vinny. This
Yeah.
was a fun one. Um Either version of this movie, I'd have my money. My money for sure.
Yep.
But Vinny, thank you so much for coming on and chatting some movies with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, us brainstorming ideas of things that are never going to exist and then it's just going to frustrate us. But most importantly, thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.